Kuf Mem Amud Beis. We're holding at the Mishnah. So yeah, it's towards the bottom of Kuf Mem Amud Beis. That's 140b. It says Garfin Milifnei Hapatam Umasalkan L'Sadam Mipnei Ari. You're allowed to sweep out. This is a trough. The animal, where the animal eats, you're allowed to sweep away the dirt. For the animal that's getting fattened, the patam is getting fattened. And you're allowed to also move the straw away so that it doesn't get dirty from the feces of the animal. That's the opinion of Reb Daisa. The Gemara is, of course, going to ask, what's asa? You just gave two cases. It's like coffee or tea. And the answer they get is yes. So it didn't say exactly which one the Chacham are arguing on. We'll see. Whatever it is, the Chachamim are stricter. You're allowed to take the food from one animal and move it towards another animal. And what would we think the issue is? Maybe it becomes muktzah when the first animal started eating from it, that the other animal won't eat it anymore. So it becomes useless. And then you can't move it because it's muktzah. Okay, let's see the Gemara right away. The yeshiva has a question. Rabbanan aresha pligi? Aya seifa pligi? Aya tavaya pligi? The Rabbanan are arguing on the first case, the second case, or on both? The Rabbanan said Eisrin. Now the first case was that you're allowed to sweep the dirt, and that would be an issue. If they're arguing on the first case, is that if you're allowed to sweep the trough, then maybe you're going to smooth out the ground through sweeping. It's a dirt floor. And it's called mashva gumais. It's a problem of baina. It's a problem of baina or a problem of chayrish. I guess it depends where it is, if it's inside the house or outside. Outside the house would be chayrish. It's preparing the soil. And so the Rabbanan are strict about that. Or are the Rabbanan arguing on the Seifa that say it's muktzah? What's the Seifa? The Seifa says that you're allowed to move. Reb Daisa says you're allowed to move the straw so that it doesn't get dirty from the feces. You're allowed to move it to the side, even though the animal started eating from it already. The Racham say it's also, that's because it becomes disgusting once the animal starts eating. Or maybe they're arguing on both. Is it a din in muktzah? Is it a din in mashva gumais? Or are they arguing on both? Tashma. So come and listen. The Tanya was studied in a brayso. Lo yisal keno l'tztadim. Both this and that, you can't move it to the side. Okay, they're arguing on both. They're machmer about both. You can't sweep the trough, and you can't move the straw. Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, Machlokes be'ivas shel karka, aber be'ivas shel keli divrei kol mutter. When do the Chachamim say it's aser, and Reb Daisa says it's allowed to sweep the trough? That's when it's a dirt floor. Usually a trough is like like a planter, a small thing where the animal can fit its head in, and it's like a rectangle container. So if it would be a container that doesn't have a bottom, it just is like a small fence that you put up so that the food goes in between those fences. But the floor of it, the bottom of it, is dirt. So that's when the Chum say it's aser. But the Chum would say that there's no problem if the floor is the container, because what's going to be the problem? So the whole machlokes is only if the floor is dirt. And the problem is that you're straightening out a soil. So the Gemara says, 1 second. When you say the machlokes is about a dirt floor, that means one person says that it's mutter. Who's that person? Reb Daisa. It means, according to Rav Dais, you're allowed to sweep a dirt floor. Does anyone hold you're allowed to sweep a dirt floor? Hakamashvi gumas, you're straightening out the holes in the soil, which is a problem on Shabbos. Eliyit marach yitma, after you say it exactly the opposite. Rav Chizda says, Machlekes bevishel keli. The Machlekes is only about the container. The Chachamim say it's not allowed in a container. Why would it not be allowed? Maybe it's a gzeira. If you sweep the container, you may end up sweeping one that's on the floor. But in Rav Dais doesn't have that gzeira. Aval bevishel karka divrei kol aser. But if it's a soil floor, everyone says that it's aser, even Rav Dais, because you're not allowed to straighten out you're not allowed to smooth out a soil floor. It's good? Okay. You're allowed to take the straw that was already started to get eaten away from the animal and move it to another animal. And we don't say that it becomes muktzah by the fact that an animal started to eat from it. One brisa says that you can take from an animal that has a nice mouth, but not, and you can put it in front of an animal that has a bad mouth. It doesn't mean it's language. It means that it's dirty, that the mouth is dirty. We're going to see in a minute it means it doesn't drip saliva. So if the first animal eats very clean, so then you can still move it, and you can put it in front of another animal that drips saliva. That would mean that the opposite is not true. If the first animal was dirty, I don't know, like sometimes the babies, they put their hand in the food before they start eating it. So I guess the animals have a similar thing with their mouth. They dirty it up, and then they start eating. So if the first animal dirties it up, then you can't put it in front of the animal. And you can't move it because it's already becomes muktzah. That's the first brisa. Tanya Yidach. The other brisa says, Neitel lefnei behema shapir rab, Neitel lefnei behema shapir yafa. Unbelievable. Mamish the opposite. You can take from an animal that's mouth is dirty. That's what it sounds like, at least. I mean, in the questions is the way we're reading it. And you can put it in front of an animal that eats clean. It's mamish a contradiction. We don't say it becomes muktzah. Amar Abaya, usually the way we answer a contradiction is we say it's machlekes, or we say that two different cases. But here we're going to do something different. We're going to translate it different. We're going to say, Pia, what is Pia Yafa? Pia Ra, what does that mean? Abaya says, Idi, if you take away these descriptions and you just put type of the animals, then they both agree. Both will hold Mekami Chamra, Lekamitura Shaklinan, that you're allowed to take food from a donkey and put it in front of an ox. The donkey eats very clean, and an ox is dirty. You can't take it from an ox and put it in front of a donkey. Okay, now let's translate the brises. This that it says that you're allowed to take from an animal that's mouth is clean, that's bechamar, the lesle riri. That's with the donkey, it doesn't have the saliva. Its mouth is clean, you're allowed to take the straw away from the donkey and give it to the ox. It's still clean. It just bit off a little bit. That's bepara. That's with the ox. Yeah, para, cow. Cow and an ox. It's the same animal. And a calf. Right? Egel, shar, para. It's all the same animal. Okay, so far that's good. This even though it has saliva that's mixing into the straw. That means we're taking from the donkey, but it's just clean, and moving it to the cow that's dirty. Okay. Now this is where the big question was. What did you mean you could take from an animal whose mouth was dirty? That's a problem. It should be that it becomes muktzah. The Gemara says that's bechamar d'leidayak b'achal. That's referring to you can take from an animal. Piyara means that it eats whatever you put in front of it. It's a different translation of piyara. It's not that it has saliva dripping down. The donkey doesn't have saliva. It just eats whatever you put there. And put it in front of, you're allowed to take from the donkey that eats whatever you put there and move it over to the ox, or to the cow, that's shapia yafa, that's very particular about what it eats. It needs a knife and a napkin and it's very particular. Now, para daika v'achla, that's talking about the cow that's very particular with what it eats. I think the concept is like this, that the donkey eats so clean. It's sort of like they said, the punishment of a liar is that he doesn't believe anyone. Because if I lie, then probably everyone's doing the same thing. So he doesn't trust anyone. So the donkey, he eats clean. So he'll eat whatever you put in front of him. No one messes up food. The cow messes up all his food. So he's very particular about what you put. He thinks so that could be the animal psychology here. Okay. Whatever the case is, we gave two descriptions for two opposite descriptions for the donkey, two opposite descriptions for the cow, and that's how we were able to reconcile a contradiction. Okay. We have a new Mishnah. The Mishnah says hakash. It's a straw that's usually for burning. It's usually to get the fire started. So it's shalgabi amita. It's on top of a bed. So it sounds like it's muktzah. So you shouldn't move it. You probably want to go to sleep there. And the straw in it, you can't move it with your hand. Maybe you're going to use the straw now as the mattress. So you want to like soften it up, fluff it up a little bit. But you're allowed to move it with your body. It's called tiltul min hatzad. It's not direct, outright moving muktzah. It's like in an indirect manner. You moving it with your body, maybe your shoulders or feet or something. That we're learning now is acceptable. Now, it could be the straw was not designated for burning. Then it wouldn't be muktzah. If it was food for animals, or if there was on it a blanket or a sheet, then you can move it by hand because that is not muktzah. That's just a pillow. It happens to be that, isn't that nice? You can eat your pillow when you're done. The animal, or you can burn it. But it's not muktzah because it has a use for Shabbos. You can move it even by hand. This is a press. If you look at Rashi even calls it a press, prisa. Press. It's like an iron press. You use it to straighten out clothing. So with two boards that were like snapped shut, and then it would hold it would straighten the clothing. So if it's for balabatim, that means that it wasn't a professional. So then you're allowed to take the clothing off it, but you're not allowed to put the clothing into it on Shabbos. You can't press the clothing. You're allowed to open it up and take it out. However, if it's a professional, then you can't touch it because you can't even open it up. It's similar, Rashi says, to stira. Binyan and stira building. It has such a tight lock on it that opening it up would be considered like taking it apart. Rabbi Yehuda says if it was already open from before Shabbos, then you are allowed to open it. I'm not sure if he's arguing. I mean, maybe the Tanna Kama never mentioned it. I don't know. Tanna Kama said la yiga, but you can't touch it at all. So he's arguing. He's being lenient. He says, no, there are times that you can open it, and if it was already unlatched. Amar of Nachman. Nachman says, we're quoting this here because in the beginning of the Mishnah, we said that you're allowed to move straw minatzad, on the side, like with your shoulder, with your foot. Tiltal minatzad. You're allowed to use your body to move the straw. It says, hi pugla. Pugla means a tuber, the bulge of the radish. Milmaila lamata shari. If it's put in the ground, or it's put in, we're not talking about when you're planting it, we're talking about that you're putting in to preserve it. That's how they would keep it fresh. If it's put in with the top wide and the down and like in a cone shape pointing down, then it's shari. Then when you take it out, you're not moving the dirt. However, milmata lamaila, but if it was put in the ground with the wide end on the bottom, then it's asr. Why? It's asr because you move the dirt as you pull it up. The wide side is on the bottom. Now, that's called tiltul min hatzad. Rav Nachman clearly says tiltul min hatzad is asr. We learned in our Mishnah that it's mutter. Amar Ravada Barava Amri Beirav. Ravada Barava says, the yeshiva of Rav says, Tanina like Rav Nachman. Our Mishnah is not like Rav Nachman. What does it say? Akash al gabi amita le'anen b'yadav aval menanei begufay. Says you're allowed to move it with your body. Or if it wasn't muktzah because it was made for fodder, or it was a mattress already because you put a blanket or a sheet on it, so then you're allowed to move it. Shema mina tiltal menatzad lav shmei tiltal. We see that moving it from the side is not considered moving muktzah. Shema mina. The Mishnah doesn't go with Rav Nachman. It sounds like it's a kasha. I don't know why it didn't emphasize. Unless we'll say that we have other mishnayos. It's not a kasha. The Gemara knows there's other mishnayos that say tiltal menatzad is shmei tiltal. And Rav Nachman has support from other places. That must be what the Gemara is doing. Amar Rav Yehuda. We have a whole list of like seemingly random sort of halachas here. I'm not sure why the Gemara does it like this. How it comes in here. Let's see. We'll learn, and maybe there's a pattern. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, "Hani pilpuli." This pepper, talking about like black pepper or something. Meida chada chada bekata de sakina. You're allowed to crush or cut one by one with the kata, with the handle of a knife. Shari, that's permissible. But tarti, but to do two of them together, that's asr. What are we saying over here? It's not considered grinding because you're doing it kalachayad, you're doing it in an abnormal manner. Normally you do a bunch together. That's the way you grind it. Here you're just cutting up one, that's not grinding. Rava says, Kimin the Mishani. Rava says no. It's not grinding anyway. You're using the back of a knife. It's not with a mortar and pestle, the way that you would normally do on a weekday. You would grind it up. You're using the back of a knife to crush it. It doesn't matter how many there are. Afilu tuvanami, even a lot is permissible. Rav Yehuda, Mandasachi b'maya, one that goes to immerses himself in the water, washes in the water. Lingav nafshei bereisha, he should first dry himself off. V'hadal l'salik, then he should come out of the water. It's got to come out partially out of the water. But what it means is, let's say he's by a lake or a river. When he goes in the water, the lake or river, maybe ocean, is called a Carmelis. It's not really Rosh Hashanah because you don't have a lot of people there. But when you get out, then you're going into whatever it is, maybe Rosh Hashanah. So you're carrying water that's on you. I don't know what you're going to do with that water, but the fact is it's water. It's not clothing. You're getting out of the water and you're carrying that water 4 cubits. It says as you're getting out, you have to dry off. I guess, I don't know if it means there's a slope, an incline, as you walk out, like by a beach. You walk out so you can dry off your head and body. How do you get a towel there? Maybe it means you brush yourself dry. Or maybe your friend is holding a towel. He wore a towel. So then you could dry off, and then you come out of the water. Dilma, what's the problem? Maybe you're going to carry the water 4 amas in a carmelis. Is a carmelis the water itself? I think so. So I guess as you're coming out of the water, you have to dry it off. This would be a problem. Someone could think maybe if you go to the mikvah on Shabbos in the ocean or in the river, there's a problem of carrying the water. Seems a little complicated. I mean, the Gemara says you could do it. You just have to figure out how to get the towel there. That would be the complication. The Gemara says, 1 second. If there's a problem of coming out of the water, because you're carrying, kikanachas nami, when you're going into the water also, dachi koichi daler amas vaser. This takes a lot of mathematics to figure this out, but you put pressure on the water when you walk in. And the pressure that you put on the water pushes the water, and so the water goes. So you're pushing the water, daler amas. I don't know if that particle of water that you push is actually going 4 amas. Depends how fast you go in, how much pressure you put on it. So the problem here is going in the water is pushing the water 4 amas. You're going to start saying that when you walk in the street, you're pushing the air, when you walk. They didn't make a gzeira like that. When you go into the water, it's a carmelis. So yeah, you're pushing the water, and the water could go 4 amas. But they never made a gzeira. That's just your kayach. It's not like you're carrying it on your body. Carrying it on your body is different.
Wouldn't that be grama?
Yeah. Is that a grama? Well, it's more than grama because it's kaychay. It's kaychay. Grama is different. Grama is when you cause something to happen. I didn't take the water out of the faucet. I just lifted up a thing and the water came out. This is kaichai. This is when you push it. I didn't carry it. I just pushed it. Yeah, that's interesting. There's other problems of going into the water. Probably a bathing suit. That's a problem. You're not supposed to do laundry and going in wetting clothing. But you can get probably a plastic bathing suit. What you're going to be left with is the issue of carrying the water. If it's in a surrounded area, let's say you have a lake in the area, maybe it's not a problem because there's an area around a little complex or whatever. A beach would be a problem. Amar Abaya, V'teimer Rav Yehuda, Titshal Gabi, we jump to another topic. Titshal Gabi Raglai, Mekanche Bekarka, Vena Mekanche Bekaisel. If you have tit, is like mud on your foot. You could wipe it on the ground, but you can't wipe it on the wall. Interesting. You're trying to clean off your foot. Amar Rava, my time of Bekaiselai. Rava says, what's wrong? Why can't you wipe it on the wall? Oh, you're adding dirt. You're adding mud to a wall. You're building. You're like filling in holes, maybe the cement. And the Gemara says, 1 second, a binyan chaklahu. Chakla means a field. That's a field building. The Gemara doesn't consider that a real building. That's not considered building. That's not aser. Ella amarava mekanche bekaisel vein mekanche bekarka. It's exactly the opposite. You wipe it on the wall, you can't wipe it on the ground. You are allowed to wipe the dirt off on the wall. Why not on the ground? That's a real problem. You wipe it on the ground, you may end up wiping it on a spot that had a hole, and you're going to be smoothing out that spot. Ashvigumas is preparing the field. Itmar, another statement. It's a continuation, really, this one. Mar Breder Ravina Amar. Mar, the son of Ravina, says, so you can't wipe the dirt, the mud, on the wall or on the ground. Rav Papa says you can do both. Wipe it on the wall or on the ground. The Mar Breder Ravina b'may mekanchila. Oh, the guy's stuck. According to Mar Breder Ravina, you have mud on your foot. That's it till the end of Shabbos. You have to leave it on your foot. You can't wipe it on the wall. You can't wipe it on the ground. Well, it says, no, that's not true. You could wipe it on a beam. It's not building, and it's not mashvigumis. It's not straightening out the soil. Amar Rava. Rava says a person shouldn't sit at the entrance of a lechi. That really means a mavi. You shouldn't sit by the lechi part of the mavi. It means right by the edge. Life on the edge. You shouldn't sit by the edge of the mavi. Something could roll out of your lap or out of your pocket, behind you, and then you reach back to take it, you'll be carrying from the Rosh Hashanah into the mavi. Something could roll out and you'll bring it in. But Amar Rava, and Rava also says, don't position a barrel on Shabbos because you may end up smoothing out a hole. Now, what this would mean is probably you take the barrel and you tilt it, then there's a dent inside the ground when you tilt it in. We set it down, you then flatten it out. So the moving of a barrel on a dirt floor, positioning it, you straighten it out, that could actually straighten out the ground. So you really have to be careful with a barrel on a dirt floor. Rava also says, don't put a rag inside a jug with liquid in it. Maybe you're going to come to squeezing. You stuff the rag in, the jug shakes, the rag gets wet. When you pull it out, it squeezes the liquid out of the rag because it was pushed in like a plug. You pull it out, it's going to drip out. It's schita. Amar Rav Kana, Titchal Gabi Bigdai. Rav Kana says dirt that's on mud, that's on his clothing, you're allowed to rub it from the inside, not the outside. You're allowed to rub it from the inside. Now, if you rub it on the outside, then it looks like you're doing laundry. Now, really, laundry is with water. So it's not mamish laundry. It's not like you're washing it. But nevertheless, this is part of it looks like it's similar to laundry. But from the inside, it's not a problem. I guess you rub it from the inside until it could fall out, could fall off the mud. But you can't rub it on the outside. Meisvei, there's a question. If there's dirt on his shoe, mud on his shoe, megarai. I had trouble with this word. So my Gemara has the following word put together, following two words put together as one. It took me a moment to realize it's two words. Megarai begav sakin. I was trying to figure out what a gav sakin is, because it's in the old Gemara. It's squeezed these two. It's as if there's dirt that's on the shoe, you can scrape it off with the edge of a knife. Okay, so far we don't have the question yet. If it's on his clothing, can scrape it with his nail. As long as you don't rub it. My love, what does it mean you can't rub it? You can't rub it at all, not from the inside, not from the outside. What are you telling me? Who was this? Rav Kana says, I'm allowed to rub off mud from my clothing if I rub it from the inside. The Brisa says you're not allowed to rub it. It says, no, loy. It says, loy. You shouldn't rub it from the outside, but from the inside, it's not a problem. Okay, it's not a kasha on Rav Kana. Amar Rabavo, Amar Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar says the name of Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Yanai, Megarin min al chadash avla yashan. This is scraping. You're allowed to scrape a new shoe, I guess if it has dirt on it, but not an old shoe. Now, the problem with the old shoe is that you may scrape off a layer of the leather, and that's considered smoothing it out if you scrape off a layer. You're making it smooth. Memachik is one of the malachas. What are you allowed to scrape the shoe with? We're talking about the new shoe, because the old shoe you weren't allowed to scrape at all. The new shoe, what are you allowed to scrape it with? The end of a knife. It's good, Daniel. It's good.
Isn't it toichen?
Toichen is if it's dried. If mud goes on clothing and it hardens, then when you scrape it off, you grind it because it hardened. Then you become grind. Here it could be that it's wet. So it's not an issue of toichen, but it's an issue of laundry. Laundry. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes like the hat gets dirty, it falls on the floor, it gets dirty. Are you allowed to rub it, brush it off on Shabbos? Or is that malabin? Or is that like an offshoot of malabin? I don't know. I remember people saying, oh, don't touch it, just leave it, Shabbos. Just leave it. So, okay. They asked, my wife told me this. I forget the details of the story, but the girl wanted to brush her hair on Shabbos. So they don't use a brush on Shabbos. They use the brush with their fingers. So he said, yeah, but it doesn't look nice, and Shabbos is supposed to look nice. They said, the Rav, whoever it was, said, no, this is the Shabbos look. This is what looks nice on Shabbos. So the dirt on the hat, that's the beauty of Shabbos. It's not the black that's the beautiful. It's the dirt on the hat that becomes beautiful when you. Okay. Amalei Saba. So Rabbi Vo said you're allowed to scrape it off. Now this Saba, this elder, which we heard Daniel told us it's Eliyahu Navi, right? Could be. Samei didach mikameha. Erase what you said. Delete what you said in front of the following brisa. Brisa, I guess. Tanya Reb Chia taught, Ein megarin leiminal chadash leiminal yashan. Can't scrape a new shoe or an old shoe. Is it because it's memachik by both of them? Maybe. Layasach es ragli shemen. No, the brisa goes on, but we've already got our point. But the brisa continues. You can't put oil on your foot, and the foot is inside a shoe, because then you're oiling the leather. Sandal, or it's in a sandal. But you can put oil on your foot, and then you put your foot in the shoe. So the oil will get on the shoe, yes, but it was via you're putting it on your foot. A sandal, or inside a sandal, you can then put your foot in. You can also put oil on your body. And then you can roll on this leather carpet, leather mat or some sort. And it's not considered like tanning or anything, because it came off your body, came off your skin, the oil. You put it on your skin, and now you're just rolling around on this. Rav Chisda says this is only to polish. We'll see in a moment what this means. This is only to polish the mat, to polish the shoe. But if it's to tan it, then it's us. The Gemara says, 1 second. What's going on over here? La'avdai, to tan it, pshita. Of course it's us. Not let it do tanning. That's one of the malachas. Can't tan leather. Are you allowed to polish it? You're not allowed to polish it either. If it was stated by Rav Chisda, it has to be stated in the following way. Only if you put on the amount of oil on your body, that would be enough to polish, then it's allowed. But if you poured oil like enough that could be used in the tanning process, then it's also, then you can't even take it from the body onto the mat or onto the shoe, because that's too much. Then it's like very apparent that it's wasn't for your body, that it's for the shoe, and that would be a problem. So we added one word, and that's what resolved it, the shear, the amount of oil that would be enough just to polish, which is a small amount of oil. Taner Rabbanu was taught in a brisa, leyitzikaten b'minol gadol. A child can't go out wearing a large shoe. I don't know if it means a child. It may mean someone with a small foot can't go out wearing a Adam katan. It doesn't mean a katan. It doesn't mean a child. It means a person that has small feet can't go out wearing a large shoe. The problem is that a large shoe is going to become so uncomfortable that you're going to take it off and carry it, and you'll walk barefoot. But you're allowed to go out with a garment, a jacket, a coat, or something, shirt that's too large, because you're not going to take it off. You're not going to walk around naked. But the shoe you're going to take off. A woman can't go out with a shoe that's torn towards the top. It's probably more like a boot than a shoe, because you see the tear, and I guess she may also take it off. It's interesting. Maybe they didn't have the issue of tznius on the legs. Or maybe she had stockings underneath. She must have had how are we going to resolve this? Because we've always said that, she's not going to take it off because she's not going to be tznius. So maybe she had stockings or something. Here we're saying we're afraid that she's going to take it off if it's torn. And v'lei tachlitz, but you can't use it for chalitza. Yeah.
Didn't we learn this already? It depended whether or not the shoe could be used on one leg or could still be used with the sandals if one was ripped, but the other was still good.
Oh, you mean if you could switch feet?
Yeah, or
we had this once about switching feet or something.
Yeah, or even if like depending on the straps, if we're still wearable or something. I thought we did the whole sugya for Shabbos.
Right.
He's so smart. He's so sharp. He didn't lose a tack, even if he retires. He's got everything.
Get out.
Yitzi would have said, take the rest of the day off, but it's Sunday. So. Okay, so you can't use it for chalitza because it's torn. It's not a good shoe. But if you did use it, then the chalitza was acceptable, and this woman can now marry someone else other than her brother-in-law. You shouldn't go with a brand new shoe. When do we say this is a problem? This is for a woman. Apparently, if it doesn't fit properly, it's more of a problem for a woman. I would have, if it didn't say that woman aspect, I just would have said, it happens all the time. People buy new shoes, and in the store it felt fine, but as they start walking to shul, after the first block, then they start to realize that it's very uncomfortable. There's something wrong here. So, minol chadash, they might take it off and carry it. But that's not the way the Gemara is putting it. The Gemara is putting it that a woman is careful, at least according to Rashi, that it fits her foot properly. And once she wore it already once, then it's not a problem. If she didn't wear it yet, then she still doesn't know if it's going to fit properly. Sounds like the first case of a katan with a gadol, with a big shoe. I'm not sure. Okay. Tani Bar Kapara. Bar Kapara taught. Not only if they didn't wear it for an hour by day. Then it's mutter. But if they wore it on Erev Shabbos, then it's allowed to wear it on Shabbos, even though it's still considered new. Because it's not considered new once they wore it. Tani Chada, Shemtin Minol Mial Gabi Ha'emus. Some say it's emum. You're allowed to take a shoe off a mold it would have a mold or a form that for the shoe. You're allowed to take it off on Shabbos. They used to have these things that you put in the shoe to keep it, you put it in and you push the thing down and it holds it strong.
Called a shoe tree.
Shoe tree.
Shoe tree.
Right. Tanya Idach Ein Shemtim. That another Brisa says you're not allowed to take it off. What do you want? Challah, yeah, you can take. The Gemara says, like kasha, it's not. We had a contradiction about taking a shoe off a shoe tree. It's more than a shoe tree. It's really. Oh, there you go, Professor. Very good. Exhibit A. Very good. So, it's really the issue over here. At least the way the Gemara is going to explain it is that it's talking about when the shoe is being made, they would put it on that knot. When you take it off and you put it away for next Shabbos. One Brisa says you're allowed to take it off. Another Brisa says you're not allowed to take it off. So what do you do when there's a contradiction? Like kasha, Rebbe Lezer, Rabbanan. It's a machlekes. It's not a contradiction. It's two opinions. The Tanan, it was taught in the Mishnah. Minol shel gabi amos. Let's say there's a shoe that's still on the mold. It wasn't. You didn't take it off yet. So Rebbe Lezer Mitar, Rebbe Lezer says that it's not considered a keli. It's not considered a vessel, a utensil, a garment, because it's not finished. You never took it off the mold yet. The Chacham say that it's already considered tummy. So, what are we saying here? According to Rebbe Lezer, it's also to move because it's not a keli. If he says it's tar, that means it's not a keli. If it's not a keli, then you can't move it. On Shabbos, it's muktzah. The Gemara says, 1 second. 1 second. It's not so simple. According to Rava, this makes sense. According to Rava, that says that a keli, utensil that's used for iser, which means the mold that's here for the shoe, to make the shoe, really, you're allowed to move it because it's a keli shemalach delisser. Keli shemalach delisser, any utensil that's used for iser, for example, a hammer, you're allowed to move it if you need the chair, and you're allowed to move it if you want to crack a nut. So here we have the mold. It's a keli shemalach delisser. It's used to make the shoe, and I should be allowed to move it if I need the shoe, or if I need the chair, or whatever. So, am I allowed to take the shoe? I'm talking about now taking the shoe off the mold. So one opinion says yes, there's no problem. Notice the mold is clearly muktzah. The question is, the machlekes is the shoe considered a keli? So that's a machlekes. We have two brises. One says the shoe is a keli, one says not. It's machlekes Rebbe Lezer and the Chacham. But the mold I can move because it's a keli shemalach delisser, which I'm allowed to move. Yeah, Naftali.
Yeah, why didn't this work for the straw on the bed? You need the place.
The straw on the bed that we learned in the Mishnah Hakash. Explain. The kash, we said if it's a keli shemalach delisser.
No, we were learning that it has to be, there was a problem with straw on the bed if someone wanted to lie on the bed.
Right.
And why isn't it the case that you need the bed? You need the place.
Oh. Over there, I think there's two things. First of all, over there, to lay on the bed itself, if it wouldn't be moving it, wouldn't be the problem. Problem is if you wanted to fluff it up, you wanted to move it. So if you wanted to move it, then that would be an issue. Now, true, you want it for something that's heter, right? You're moving it for a heter purpose. I just want it to lay down. So I'm using it to lay down like a hammer. Only thing is, Straw is not a keli shemalach de'leser. Straw goes under a different category of muktzah. It's not all muktzah. It's only a keli, which it's a real keli, and it has a use for Isser. I'm allowed to use it for heter. But straw is not considered a keli shemalach de'leser. I think it's just, I think that's the pshat. Okay, so here, where we're saying is that it works well according to Rava that you're going to end up moving the mold, and the whole issue is the shoe acceptable to move? However, Al-Abaya, the Amar, for itself, you're allowed to move it. If I needed the mold, let's say, to do something of heter. But if I need the place, then it's going to be asr. So what over here, I need the place. So why is there even one opinion that holds that I'm allowed to take the shoe off? You really just, you need to move it. So you're moving it for the place. You definitely don't need the actual mold. You just need the shoe. So you shouldn't be allowed to move it. Your only heter of moving the mold would be if you need to use the mold for something of heter. So Ma'ikla Meimar, so what's the pshat in the machlokes? No one should allow you to move it. You don't have to move the mold. All of this was an assumption. That's not accurate. We're talking about that it wasn't tight on the mold, and you could take it off the mold without moving it. The whole kasha was based on a false assumption. So then you had a big question, but it wasn't accurate. The Tanya was taught in a brayso, Rabbi Yehuda, that if it's loose, then you're allowed to move it. Time of the Rafi, holai Rafi lai. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's very clear. It's only if it's loose that you're allowed to take the shoe off. The Gemara says, 1 second. Hani chala Abaya. This is only according to Abaya that says, that statement of Rabbi Yehuda only fits with Abaya. That says the only way that you're allowed to move it is if it's loose. Whereas reversing the question now. Once you have the answer, now you go back and you say, 1 second, now it doesn't fit with Rava. According to Rava, that says you're allowed to move it just because I need the shoe. I need the shoe. I'm allowed to move it for another purpose, not to protect the mold, of course, but I'm allowed to move it because I need the spot. I need the area inside the shoe because I want to put my foot in. So I'm allowed to move it. Why does it have to be loose? It doesn't have to be loose. I can take it out. It's made to make shoes. Now I take it out because I need to put my foot in. It says it doesn't have to be like that. It says Ahu de Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Lezer Hu. It's a very interesting answer. If you remember, we had a machlokes. Are you allowed to take the shoe off the mold? Rabbi Lezer said no. Actually, Rabbi Lezer said that the shoe was not considered a keli yet. So comes along Rabbi Yehuda and says that if the mold is loose, if the shoe is loose on the mold, so then even according to Rabbi Lezer that normally holds that it's not a keli, but if it's loose, then in my Yarafa, if it's loose, then it would be mutter to remove it. So according to Rava, that doesn't need it to be loose. What is Rabbi Yehuda saying? Only if it's loose. Rava didn't need it to be loose according to the Chachamim that said the shoe is no problem to take off. Rabbi Yehuda says that if it's loose, you can move it. That's going according to Rabbi Lezer that was strict. That says really it's not a keli, but if it's loose, then it's considered already a finished product. It makes it considered that it's already a finished product. We just switch the reason for the looseness. What does loose do? According to the way we were learning until now, if it's loose, then it makes it, you're not moving it. It has to do with, you shouldn't be moving the mold, according to Abaya. According to Rava, the way we'll say if it's loose, then you shouldn't be moving the shoe. The shoe is not a finished product. No, it's loose. The shoe is finished already. It's a problem with the shoe, and we're resolving it by saying that it's loose. Okay, Hadran Lachtelen. Okay, we have a new parak here. It's also a nice short parak. Naitel Adam Espenai Ve'evan Biyadei. We're not talking about carrying here, we're talking about muktzah. A person can lift up his son, his child, that's holding something muktzah, a stone. We don't say that the person is moving the stone. We say that the person is moving the child. The child is holding the stone. V'kalkala ve'evan b'seichi. You could also move a basket. Probably the basket has fruit in it. And there's a stone inside. Allowed to move the basket. We don't say that he's moving the stone. He's moving the basket. Okay. This is food that's supposed to be eaten by a kohen, truma. The problem is that if it's truma tameya, you really can't eat it at all. But if I have one basket that has both truma tameya and truma tahira in it, or somehow it's not making each other tameh, maybe it's a shlishi already, so it can't make the next part tameh. Maybe it's not touching. Maybe it's in two parts of the container, two bags. One says on it Tmeya, one says Tahira. So you're allowed to move them both. And I'm allowed to move it together with Chulin. Because what we're saying is that the important item takes over the significance here. And the other item isn't muktzah, it's nullified to the first item. Rabbi Yehuda is a chiddush. What happens is that if Truma falls into chulin. So chulin is regular food you buy in the store. Truma is food that's given to the kohen. If it gets mixed together, then I have to give it all to the kohen. Unless it's the proportion that the truma is nullified 1 in 100 to the chulin, then we say it's batal, it's nullified. Now the only problem is that you nullified something that's not yours. So, if someone lends me $100, I take it and I put it inside my, I put it in my bank or whatever. And you say, where's my money? I say, it got nullified. I was mavatal in my, with all my other money. So it doesn't exist anymore. So it doesn't work. You still owe the money. So here you took truma. It's not yours. It's the kohen's. You nullified it in chulin. So yeah, you're allowed to eat the chulin. So you have to look at this in two ways. You have to look at the holiness, the sanctity of it. And you also have to look at the monetary value. So you have to actually, although you could eat it, but you still owe part of this to the kohen. So you have to take out one saw, let's say it was one saw of chulin, of truma fell into 100 saw of chulin. I have to take out one saw and give it to him. Now, when I take that out, I'm fixing my truma. I'm fixing my chulin rather, and I can eat the rest. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not a problem to do on Shabbos. He must hold that the taking out that one saw is not really fixing it. That's just a monetary issue, and it has nothing to do with the permissibility of eating this food. Otherwise, you wouldn't be allowed to fix the food on Shabbos. You can't take truma and meiser from your food on Shabbos. Okay. Here, the truma was already taken. It just fell in. Amar Rava. Rava says, Haitzi tinek chai. This we had before. The kiss tali b'tzavari is chai mishum kiss. If a person carries a child, now we're talking about carrying outside. He carries a child outside into Rosh Hashanah. And there's a wallet, purse, hanging from the child. He's not chayav for carrying the child because we had a rule that a live person carries himself. So carrying the child is really a rabbinic problem. However, the money that's on the child is chayav for that money. Chay mishum kis. Tinik meis. Let's say the child is not alive. Kis talibit savari. And there's a wallet hanging from his neck. Pater, he's exempt entirely. He's not chayav for carrying out the corpse. He's not chayav for the wallet to figure out what's going on over here. Tinik chay v'kis talibit savari chay mishum kis. If the child's alive and there's a purse hanging from his neck, so l'chayev nam mishum tinik. Why is he not chayev for the child? He carried a child into Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara answers, Rava Rab Nosson Srilei, Damar Chay Neisias Atzmei. That's not a problem. Rava holds like Rab Nosson. We had this opinion already. Rab Nosson holds that a live person carries himself. So the term dead weight is if it's not alive, it weighs more. The person like assists sort of in the carrying. So it's as if the person carrying didn't really do the carrying. The Gemara asks 1 second. V'libatel kis legabi tinak. Why you chayev for the purse? The child is the more important, and the purse is just hanging on him. Milay Tanan, was it not taught? As a chay b'mita, pater afalamita, shamita tefillah. If you carry out a person on a bed, you pater because the bed is nullified to the person. The person needs the bed. So we say that he's exempt. Besides, of course, he's exempt on the person because chay neisias atzmei, the live person carries himself. But he's also exempt for the bed. So why over here? He should be, is he chayav for the purse? He should be exempt from the purse. Gemara says, no, the bed serves the person. So it's nullified to the person. But kis legabi tinek le'mevatel, the purse doesn't serve it doesn't have to do with importance here. It doesn't have to do with, well, person to child, let's put this together and say which one's more important. The person's more important than the bed. That's not, but person to a wallet, oh no, the wallet's more important. That's not what we're doing. We're saying that a different type of bittul. Is it bittul as in serving the person? The bed serves the person, but the purse doesn't serve the person. So it's like you carry two things. And so one of them you pater on, one of them you chayav on. Yeah, Daniel.
But you're saying that the child assists in carrying himself.
Yeah, himself.
But the child certainly assists in carrying the pouch. He's the one holding it.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. That's the lead up over here. 1 second. Yeah, we're about to touch on that.
Okay.
So the Gemara asks, hold it. We're going to get to that in a moment. Tinik meis, the kistal lebit savari is pater if the child is dead. And there's a purse that's on his neck, he's exempt. Now, l'chayv mishum tinik. The Gemara, it's interesting. The Gemara doesn't ask that he should be chayv because of the purse. The Gemara is assuming here that he's so distraught over the occurrence that the purse is not considered of any value to him. Which is very interesting. That we would say that has no value when he carries it. Remember, we had all these things. What's considered a shear of carrying grain, carrying this, carrying that. Here, the purse becomes valueless because of this occurrence. But what about the deceased, the corpse? The Gemara says, Rabbi Reb Shimon Tzvili, Rabbi holds like Reb Shimon, the Amar, Kol malach shein tzrich legufa pater ala. Reb Shimon holds, you're not taking the child out because of you want the child outside. It's because you don't want him inside. Because the corpse begins to smell or whatever, you don't want him in the house. So it's not because you need him outside, it's because you don't want him inside. That's called the malacha shein tzrich legufa. It's a malacha, an activity that's not needed for the natural purpose of that activity. You need it for a secondary purpose. Okay, we've said that before, that if you take a mace out, That's the opinion of Reb Shimon. Now let's go back. Daniel mentioned this before. A person's allowed to take, in our Mishnah we said, a person's allowed to carry a child and he has a stone in his hand. Well, who's carrying the stone? The child, not the person. That's what he's allowed to carry. Now, we're not talking about carrying, actually. The Mishnah was talking about muktzah. But nevertheless, the comparison is still good. Because who's holding the stone? Who's moving that muktzah? You say it's not the father, it's the child that's doing the moving. So too, when it comes to carrying, we shouldn't say that the person is carrying the purse, the man is carrying the purse. We should say that the child is carrying the purse, because he's holding it. Amri debei Rabbi Yanai b'tinik sheish like gagu and alaviv. Rabbi Yanai gives an answer. When are you allowed to lift up the child in the courtyard that's holding a stone? It's not in a regular case. He's talking about the child is like saying, Daddy, Daddy, he needs you to hold him or else it could cause anguish and could be suffering. And it's not a real sakanas nefashos, but it's sakanas chayli. They could get sick from this. So you're allowed to take the child. Special exemption, special heter over here. Really, the child is holding the muktzah. Really, the adult is holding the muktzah through the child. He holds the child, he holds the muktzah. But over here, we take away the laws of muktzah because we don't want the child to get sick. If that's the case, then why did he give such a story that the child is holding a rock? Ma'yer Ye'evan, we're on top of Kuf Mem Beis. Afilu dinar nami, even if he's holding a coin, which is real muktzah. Why do you use the case of a rock? When it says, Alama Amar Rava Leishanu Eleven al V'dinaser. Why did Rava even say, I don't know if there's a difference in muktzah aspect, but why did Rava say, this is the question, why did Rava say only a stone but not a coin? Not allowed to hold the child if he's holding a coin. When it says, Evan, if the stone falls, the father's not going to go pick it up. Dinar, but if the coin falls, then the father's going to go pick it up. And that's going to be a problem of muktzah. So you can't hold the child that has a coin, but you can hold a child that has a stone. Are we still accepting the teretz? Yeah, still only a special heter. Because the child has gaguim, he's yearnings for his father. Tanya Kavasei de Rava. Bring a support for what Rava says. So Maitzi Kelav, Mikupalim, Menachem al Kseifa, V'sandal v'tavesi biyada is chayiv. Someone carries clothing that's folded and put on his shoulder, and he also has his sandals and his rings in his hand. He's chayiv, he's carrying on Shabbos. He's holding his hand, the rings in his hand, not on his fingers, but he's carrying them. But he's allowed to go out wearing clothing. It's not considered carrying if he's wearing them. Let's say you carry a person that's wearing clothing. So his sandals are on his feet, rings are on his fingers, on his hand. He's pater because he carried a person, and a person carrying a person is pater. But if he carries them as they are, that means folded, then he's going to be chayev. Then he's going to be chayev. We see that you're actually carrying what the person is carrying. Person carrying the person is, that person that's carrying the person is also carrying what's in his hands. Okay. Remember one time on Shabbos, I was walking mincha time. This was in Muncie years ago. I went to school over there. I was staying with the family. Anyway, I walked by on the yard. I saw a $10 bill and a $5 bill. It was like folded. Someone on Shabbos must have realized he had it in his pocket and pushed it out. Just like in the grass. So I say, hey, look, there's money. So the people I was walking with, They said, oh, interesting, interesting. Anyway, we went to Mincha, it's Shabbos. Went to Mincha, came back after Havdalah. I wanted to go out to go look if it was still there. And I saw people were already there with the flashlight. Someone else had spotted it. So they go back to get the coin. That's the thing. If it fell, you go back to get the coin. Okay. Kalkala ve'even b'seicha. There's a basket that has a stone in it. We said you're allowed to move the basket because you're moving the fruits. You're not moving the stone. The Gemara asks 1 second. But the kalkala is a basis. Basis is a base. It's a base for something that's muktzah. And a basal davar aser is aser. You're not allowed to move it. It's full of fruits. If it's full of fruits, then it's a bus. The basket is a base for something that's mutter as well. And that becomes permissible to move. Gemara says, 1 second. Why can't you throw out the fruits? Throw out the fruits, and then you'll throw out the stone. And then you take the fruits back in the basket. You could empty it out. You don't have to carry the stone. Gemara says, it's similar to the answer that Rabbi Loi said in the name of Rav. Talking about fruits that are soft. Maybe it's like baked already or whatever, soft fruits. That if you throw them on the floor, they're going to get ruined. So you're allowed to take the whole basket. Gemara says, why don't you shake it without throwing it out? You just shake it until it gets moved to the side. Here we're talking about that the stone is filling in a hole in the basket. We had this before with garlic, putting garlic inside a basket. Right? Here you have a stone that's making the basket so that it doesn't have a hole in it. It's blocking the fruits from falling out. That's why you don't want to empty it out. You don't want to move it to the side because then the fruits will fall out. Metaltal and truma, we said that you're allowed to move the truma that's mixed together. Amar Rav Chizda says, talking about that the fruit that's, not the fruit, the grain, because truma is grain. The grain is, that the truma that's pure is on the bottom. And the truma that's tummy is on top. And that's why you can't take it out. But let's say it was the opposite. The pure grain is on the top, and the other grain is on the bottom. The tmei is on the bottom. Then shakalela tahara v'shavakalela tmeya. Then you could take away the tahara, and you leave the tmeya there. Then you shouldn't be moving it. If you have a way out, then you shouldn't be moving it. Got some light. Okay. What's the difference? Even if the tahara grain is on the bottom, you could spill out the tummy grain. No, you can't. Talking about that it's going to get dirty if you spill it out. Okay. Similar to what we said before. Actually, the same. Not only is it similar, but it's what we said before is a quote from this. Meisvei. The Gemara has a question. Metaltlin shumatmeyam teir v'machulam ben sheter l'mayla utmei l'mata ben shetmei l'mayla teir l'mata. That's a big problem. It says clearly, it doesn't matter which is on top, the tamei or the tar, which is on the bottom, the tamei or the tar. You're allowed to always move the two together. It's exactly the opposite of Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda said that it depends which one is on top. If the tar is on top, then take the tar off and leave the tummy there. You shouldn't be moving the tummy. So you have to do Rav Chizda. It's a kasha on Rav Chizda. Amlach Rav Chizda, mastisal tzerich gufay, brisel tzerich mekaymai. Very interesting answer. When does the Mishnah say that I'm allowed to move the truma only if the tahar is on the bottom and the tameh is on the top. But if it would be the other way, the tahar on the top, then I wouldn't be allowed to move it. That's because you need that grain to eat. You need that grain. You have no use for the bottom, for the tameh grain. So therefore, you only need one of them. If you only need one of them, then it makes a difference which one is on top, which one is on the bottom. However, the brisa that says it doesn't matter which one is on top and which one is on the bottom is because I need that chair that it was on. So therefore, I have to move both. So the brisa says it doesn't matter because you have to move both anyway because you need the location. The one that says, the Mishnah that says it matters which one is on top and the bottom is because you need the actual grain. The Gemara says, look at what just happened here. Rav Chisda says that the Mishnah is limited to one case, only with the tahar grain on the bottom. If the tahar grain is on top, then the Mishnah is not talking about that. Now, in order to explain the Mishnah, he said that's because the Mishnah is talking about when I only need the grain to eat. I don't need the location of the grain. And therefore, it depends which one is on top, which one's on the bottom. The problem what the Gemara is asking is that Rav Chisda created a limitation on the Mishnah and then explains the story of the Mishnah to fit the limitation. He didn't have to do that. Don't make the limitation on the Mishnah that it's because you need it to eat. You need a l'tzerech gufay. Say that you need it for the location and then don't put the limitation on the Mishnah, exactly what you did for the brisa. Why do you have to limit the Mishnah? The Mishnah doesn't say that at all. And then you limit the Mishnah and then create a logic for that limitation. Amarav Masnisin Kavasei Daik. The Mishnah fits perfectly well with Rav Chisda. The Tani Seifa, because we're going to learn in a later Mishnah, money that's on a cushion, you can shake the cushion and it will fall off. When are you allowed to shake the cushion for it to fall off? That's because if you needed the money for some other, if you needed the cushion, but if you needed the location, then you're allowed to move the whole thing. Because just to shake it wouldn't resolve you. You still need the location. Now, because the end of the Mishnah is when I only need the permissible item, and the other item is mixed in. So So the limitation we already see on the Mishnah that Rav Chisda creates, we see that already from the Seifa. So it makes sense that this should fit. The Reish and Seifa should have the same limitation, that it's l'tzerech gufay, and therefore it's only if you can't get the item out without moving the upper one. Then you can move the whole thing. Rabbi Yehuda said that you're allowed to take the grain out. If it's truma that fell in 1 in 100 became nullified, you're allowed to take it out. The problem is, but you're fixing the grain and now you're making it possible to eat. Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lazar spherely. Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Lazar, the Amar Truma Be'ena Machta. The Truma is not actually mixed in. You're not actually fixing it. It's, even though it's there and it's in the same container, but it's considered pure on its own. So you're not actually separating the Truma. It's in there as if it's designated. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. So Truma Shnafel Pachis Mi Me'ev Nidmu. Let me leave this Gemara over here. We'll start over from Rabbi Yehuda because or else I'm going to rush through it.